Hello everyone. Today we'll be talking about a particular database object that we call trigger. Now, like I said, trigger is a database object, but it executes automatically when a particular event occurs in a database. Now, triggers are similar to stored procedures. Now, you might be wondering which kind of events that will happen that will activate a trigger. Now, events like your inserts, when you carry out an insert operation, when you carry out an update operation, when you carry out a delete operation. Now, all these are events that can trigger or activate a trigger. Okay, now we have three types of trigger. We have the DML. Of course, you know DML stands for data manipulation language. Now, this includes SQL statement like your insert, like your delete, like your update that we just listed earlier. Then we have the second one, which is DML. DML stands for, sorry, DDL. DDL stands for data definition language. Now, this includes SQL statement like our create, our alter, and the likes. Then we have the last one, which is the log on trigger. Okay, but in this video, we are going to be talking about the DML trigger. Let us first look at the general syntax of writing a trigger. Now look at this. This is the general syntax for creating a trigger. We start with the keyword create, followed by the keyword trigger, then our schema name, that is optional, then the trigger name. Okay, then on the on followed by the on keyword, which will specify which table are we creating it on, or which view are we creating this trigger on. This is to tell you that we can create a trigger on either a table or on either a view. Okay, I think I have a note that explains more about all this. Let's look at it. Okay, the schema name, like I said, is optional. Then the trigger name is the name of the trigger. Then the on specifies is a keyword that helps specify which of the table in the database or which of the view in the database that we are going to be creating the trigger on. Then the after keyword tells us that that this particular trigger that we created or that we are creating can only execute successfully if the SQL statement that we write or the operation that we are trying to carry out is successful. For example, if somebody trying to update or somebody trying to insert into a database table and the operation is not successful, there is no way our trigger will be activated. There's no way our trigger will fire. So it can only fire if that operation is successful. If you're trying to insert into a table and it's giving you error, then there is no way the trigger will be fired. But if it is successful, it will be fired. That is what this after keyword stands for. Then instead of is used to possibly skip a particular event from happening or skip a particular thing from happening. For example, somebody is trying to delete or somebody trying to insert into the database table. You can write a trigger that will instead of deleting, it will do something else, or instead of inserting, it will carry out a different operation. Then not for replication. This instructs the SQL server not to invoke the trigger when a replication agent modifies the table. Okay, then after all this, the next thing is followed by the SQL statement that will perform the action that we really want it to perform. Now that you have seen the general syntax for writing a SQL trigger or creating a SQL trigger, let's go straight away into let's launch our management studio and go straight away into doing one or two. Okay, I have launched my SQL server, and I believe you launch your own too. Okay, there is a particular table that I'm very sure I created. That table is called guest, and I created it inside um, a particular um, a particular database called um, easy concept. Okay, so let me just select everything from that particular table. Okay, my master database is being selected, so let me change it to easy concept. Okay, then let me execute this query now and see the output. Okay, now you can see that here we have this particular um, report from this query that we just selected everything from the guest database. Okay, now we are going to create a trigger. Let's do a particular trigger that will keep track of which operation is being done to our database. Let's say if somebody is inserting, it will the trigger will fire that will tell us that okay, somebody inserted into our guest table, or if an update was made, it will fire to tell us that an update was made to our guest table. Okay, right here in my notepad, I've already created most of the things. Now why I did this is just to save time, so I'm just going to copy and paste, then we execute it and I'll explain. Copy and paste, then we explain. Okay, now the first thing I'll need to do is to create um, my guest log table. Like I said, this particular guest log table, this table will help us to store every will help us to store every operation that is being carried out in our um, guest um, table. So we say create table guest log. You can call your own whatever name you want to call. Then the log ID. The log ID is going to be like my serial number. That is why I said int identity. That means I want it to int identity 1, comma 1. I want it to increase by 1. So it will start, it will count. The first operation will count 1, the second one will be 2, like that. Then my dinner ID. Oh, let me check my table to see if we have a particular um, attribute called dinner ID. Oh, sorry, guest ID. Okay, what we have here is guest ID, and what I have here is dinner ID. So I'm going to change this to um, G underscore ID. Okay, G underscore ID. That is what we have here. So I want it to keep track of every row that is being affected. Okay, so then the next thing I want to store is the operation that is being carried out. Then the next thing is the time that this particular operation was being carried out. So I call it the operated time, the time this particular operation was being carried out. So I'm going to execute this particular query, and it will create for me a log table. So I click on execute, and it will be executed successfully. Okay, the next thing we want to do is now to create the trigger. Okay, let me just copy this. Let's come to our management studio, then let's paste it and explain. Now this is a trigger that we are creating for um we are creating this our trigger for the guest table. So you see that's why we have the keyword create trigger. Then the trigger name is trigger guest insert. This trigger is for insert. It will take care of every insert operation that is being carried out in our guest table. Then it is happening. We are doing this on our guest table, like we said. Then we bring this. Now look at this. This will insert into this operation will be inserted into our log table, our guest log table. Mind you, we created our guest log table here. Okay, so then what is going to happen is going to store for us the guest ID, it's going to store for us the insert operation, because that is the operation that is being carried out. We're writing this for insert operation. Then it's going to store the particular time, the particular date that that particular event happened. That particular event happened. So get date is a built-in function in SQL that gets the actual date, the particular date that particular thing happens. Okay, so we are going to execute this. So let's execute this also. This is giving us error. It says procedure trigger line 6 bash b0 invalid column did. Okay, so look at this. This is our mistake. Let's change this to G, which is guess ID. Okay, I think if we execute this now, it will run successfully. Okay, now that it has run successfully, we have created a trigger that will automatically fire when a particular insert operation is being carried out in our in our um in our guest table. Okay, so first of all, let's come back to this particular place that we created. We created a log table. Let me do a new query. Let's select select asterisk from our guest log. Or let me type it exactly the same way I did it, guest log. Select asterisk from our guest log. This is our guest log. Okay, so let's execute. Now you'll see that nothing is inside. Okay, let's go back to our guest table. So I'm possibly going to use a new query to do that. Let's select asterisk. Let's select asterisk. Simply means we should select everything in our guest table. Everything in the guest table. Okay, our guest is not spelled correctly. Let's correct that and execute. Now we can see this is everything inside our guest table. So let's carry out an insert operation. Let's carry out an insert operation on our guest table. So we are going to do into insert into guest. Insert into guest. Let's now call all our attributes. Guests have a particular attribute called GID, then comma. The next thing is our guest name, G name, then comma. The next thing we have is the G, our guest email. Then the next thing we have there is our guest address. Then the next thing that we have there is our guest phone number. So we have it as pnum. Okay, so now we want to insert the following values. Then we now begin to specify our value. Let's just insert just one record, one instance. Okay, so the first thing is our guest ID. So guest ID is really unique. Let's just give this one G115. Then we go outside, we put comma, then our again. Then we're going to have the guest name. Let's say the guest name is going to be Emeka. We go outside, then the guest email. Let's say our guest email is going to be Emeka Emeka at gmail.com. Okay, then the next thing we're going to have is address. Okay, let's say Emeka is staying in Victoria Island in Lagos, so let's just put IV there for okay, let's say VI for Victoria Island, where Emeka is staying. Then the next thing is Emeka's phone number. Okay, so in a single quote again, I'm going to have Emeka's phone number. Let me say I'm going to have 080 666 6688966. Okay, so let's execute this. If you execute this, see, it's giving us one row affected, one row affected. Now I'm very sure that this first one is for our guest table and this one is for our guest log table. Okay, let me just cut this out. Let me cut this out. Now let's do select select again asterisk from our guest table. Let's see what we just inserted. Now, if we execute this, you see that there's a particular new record that says Emeka. Now, let's come back to our guest log. Now, if we execute our guest log now, you'll see that we have a particular record now. Now, this record is not we did not insert it. It was the trigger that fires automatically when this inserts when we did this particular insert operation, this particular insert event was what fired this trigger, and we now have this record. Okay, now what if we are trying to do an update in our database? Will it save? No, it will not save. It will not save here because the trigger that we wrote is only for insert. So if we must do for updates to be saved too, then that means that we need to do what? Also write a trigger that um, will do anything concerning any update operation that is being carried out in database. Okay, now look at this. This particular one now is to create a particular trigger, and we're going to call it guest update. Then what it's going to be doing is going to be doing it after an update operation is successful. Then just like we did for the other ones. Okay, if we execute this one now, it will run successfully. Okay, let's come back to um, this particular table. This particular table now, let's carry out an update operation. So if we say update, let's say G address, update our guest address, update our G address, guest address, guest address, update guest address. Okay. um Update. Okay, sorry, we're going to we did not even put the table we want to update. We want to update guest. It is the guest table we want to update. Update guest. Then we're going to set our G address, to be equals to set our G address to be equals to let's say we have VI before, so let's just make it Lagos this time. Set it to be Lagos. Okay, then we want it to happen um where G, that's the guest ID, where our guest ID is equals to um G 115. So if you check, we are trying to change this particular record from VI to Lagos. And mind you that we made a particular trigger here that will keep track of every update. So let's come here and execute. It's successful. Now you see it's also telling us one row. This is for the table and this is for the trigger. Okay, let us see if what we did worked. I will cut this and I will select asterisk. Select asterisk from our guest. Okay, select asterisk from guest. If we execute, we will see that what was here was VI. It has changed from VI to Lagos. And if we come back here and execute the statement, we will see that a new record will be added, and this time it is saying update. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. We're going to do other video explaining other aspects of trigger. Please do well to like this video, tell us what you think about the video, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much, and God bless.